Today, we're going to talk about a single piece of American legislation that's setting off a tectonic shift across the entire multi-trillion-dollar global biopharmaceutical industry. It's called the BIOSECURE Act, and it's on track to fundamentally change how life-saving medicines are discovered, developed, and manufactured all over the world. To really get a sense of the scale of this change, it helps to ask this question. Much like the strategic decoupling we've all been watching in the semiconductor world, the BIOSECURE Act is creating a whole new reality for biopharma, one that's driven less by pure cost efficiency and much more by national security, supply chain resilience, and, frankly, geopolitical alignment. And make no mistakes, this is not just a theoretical shift. The stakes here are absolutely immense. Industry estimates suggest that something like $30 billion in biologics manufacturing and development contracts are now essentially up for grabs, shifting away from the players who used to dominate this space and creating a truly once-in-a-generation opportunity for others to step up. So in this explainer, we're going to walk through exactly what this law means. We'll start with the act itself, then look at the global value chain it's disrupting, we'll map out the changes, examine the timeline for it all, analyze the winners and consequences, and then we'll wrap up by looking at the historical significance of this moment. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is the BIOSECURE Act? Well, at its core, it represents a fundamental recalibration of risk in the biopharma world. The law really has two main goals. First, it's designed to protect sensitive American genomic data from foreign adversaries. And second, it aims to reduce the U.S. biopharma industry's reliance on what it sees as potentially risky supply chains. And it does this by using the power of the purse. It basically cuts off federal grants and contracts to any organization that's using equipment or services from a company that gets designated a company of concern. And this right here, this is the key change in thinking. For decades, biotechnology was seen mostly through a commercial lens. It was a sector driven by innovation, by market forces. The BIOSECURE Act officially changes that. It redefines biotech as a matter of national security, putting it right up there with critical infrastructure and defense. So, how does the Act identify these so-called biotech companies of concern, or BCCs? Well, it uses a structured three-tiered process. Category A is pretty straightforward. It automatically includes any biotech firms already on the Department of Defense's list of Chinese military companies. Category B is more flexible. It allows the Office of Management and Budget to make designations based on national security risks. But it comes with a notice period that lets companies challenge the label. And then Category C just extends that to related entities, like subsidiaries. It's a system that's designed to be clear, but also adaptable. Now, to really understand the disruption, we first need to understand the system that existed before all this. So let's take a look at the highly globalized value chain that has really defined the biopharma industry for the last 2 decades. The path from a simple idea to a medicine on a pharmacy shelf has followed a pretty well-worn 5-stage process. It starts with drug discovery, then it moves into preclinical work, often outsourced to what we call contract research organizations, or CROs. Then it's on to human clinical trials, then large-scale manufacturing with contract development and manufacturing organizations, or CDMOs, and finally, commercialization. Now, what's really interesting is how globalization shaped this map. The U.S. was the undisputed engine of innovation and venture capital. China became, for all intents and purposes, the world's lab and factory floor, offering incredibly efficient and cost-effective R&D and manufacturing services. And then you had Europe and other allied nations in Asia that carved out their own specialized roles. The result was a system that was incredibly efficient, but also highly concentrated and very interdependent. So along comes the BIOSECURE Act, and it doesn't just tweak the system. It takes a sledgehammer to every single stage of that value chain. Let's look at how. The changes start right at the very beginning. This concept of data securitization is now front and center. U.S. genetic and multi-omic data, that's the really comprehensive biological data, is now being treated as a strategic asset that has to be protected. For universities and small biotechs, this means that federal grant money, it just can't be spent on equipment or services from a BCC anymore. And that immediately makes the popular one-stop shop model offered by certain large Chinese research organizations a huge compliance risk. The disruption just keeps rolling into clinical development. Drug sponsors are quickly adopting what's called a China Plus One strategy, where they deliberately diversify their clinical trial sites to lower their geopolitical risk. And this is fueling a massive boom in other regions. India is now the 3rd largest destination for trials globally, and along with South Korea and Japan, they're emerging as major new hubs. So the key takeaway is that concerns about data sovereignty now heavily influence where patient data is collected, stored, and analyzed. But perhaps the biggest impact of all is on manufacturing. We are seeing a huge, large-scale migration of manufacturing contracts away from China. This is not a simple switch, though. Transferring a complex biologics process is incredibly difficult. There's a saying in this world that the process is the product, which means the manufacturing method itself is essential to the drug's safety and effectiveness. A move like this can take 2 to 4 years, and for a new facility, cost well over $1 billion. This is creating enormous opportunities for manufacturing organizations in the US and in allied nations, something people are calling reshoring or friendshore. Now, this kind of industry-wide restructuring isn't happening overnight. The legislation actually has a built-in multi-year timeline. It's designed specifically to prevent catastrophic shocks to the global drug supply. So this timeline shows a very deliberate, phased approach. The clock really started when the act became law in December 2025, and we expect the first official list of concerned companies by the end of 2026. Real enforcement kicks in around late 2028, after all the federal procurement rules get updated. Now, critically, the law has a grandfathering clause. This provides a transition period for many existing contracts until a hard deadline in 2032, which is when all federally related work must be completely free of any BCC involvement. And this quote, I think, captures the dynamic perfectly. The timeline makes the change manageable, but the direction of travel is crystal clear. And according to most industry analysis, it's irreversible. Companies have a window to adapt, but they absolutely cannot ignore the shift that's coming. A change of this magnitude is obviously going to create a whole new competitive landscape. So let's try to analyze which regions and business models are really positioned to benefit and which ones are facing some significant challenges. This really lays out the likely redistribution of work. The main beneficiaries are, of course, US-based service providers and their counterparts in allied nations like India, South Korea, Japan, and across Europe. On the flip side, China-based service providers that rely heavily on US clients, they're facing an existential challenge. And the same goes for any company, anywhere, that has concentrated its entire supply chain in a single region that's now considered high risk. And look, this isn't just speculation. We are seeing massive capital investment happening right now in response to this. Major players in allied nations are aggressively expanding their manufacturing capacity to soak up all this migrating revenue. Companies in places like South Korea, Europe, and the United States are pouring billions of dollars into new facilities, all to position themselves as the secure, compliant partners for the future. But beyond all the corporate winners and losers, this whole realignment brings up 3 really critical questions that will ultimately affect all of us. How is this going to impact the price of medicine, the pace of innovation, and ultimately the health of patients? There are really complex trade-offs here. I mean, if you move manufacturing to higher-cost regions like the US and Europe, it seems logical that could lead to higher drug prices, at least in the short term. And on innovation, well, the picture is a bit murky. Will having less global collaboration slow down progress, or could intense competition between 2 separate geopolitical blocs actually speed it up? This points to what could be the most profound outcome of all, the creation of 2 distinct parallel biopharma ecosystems, a trusted Western-aligned sphere and a China-centric one, each with potentially different standards, data, and innovation priorities. And that brings us to our conclusion. I think it's essential to zoom out here and see the BIOSECURE Act not just as another piece of regulation, but as a truly pivotal moment in the history of this entire global industry. This is the ultimate question we're left with. For the last 30 years, the biopharma industry has been a textbook case of globalization, chasing efficiency and expertise wherever it could be found on the planet. The BIOSECURE Act signals that this era may very well be ending. It marks the start of a new paradigm where national security, data sovereignty, and supply chain resilience are valued just as highly as cost and speed, and that's a change that is going to redefine the future of medicine for decades to come.